Alexander IV, the only legitimate son of Alexander the Great, was born in 323 BC to Alexander and his wife, Roxana, a princess from Bactria. Despite being the rightful heir to his father's vast empire, Alexander IV never ascended to the throne or ruled as emperor. His short life and tragic end were marked by political instability and power struggles among the generals of his father, known as the Diadochi, who fought to control the empire after Alexander's sudden death in 323 BC. 1. Alexander the Great's death. Alexander the Great died in June 323 BC in Babylon at the age of 32 after leading a series of successful military campaigns across Asia and Africa. His death, coming so unexpectedly, left his vast empire without a clear successor. Although Alexander had named no formal heir, his son, Alexander IV, was only an infant, and his mother, Roxana, was also relatively powerless without her husband's influence. Alexander's generals, known as the Diadochi, initially agreed to rule on behalf of Alexander IV and his half-brother, Philip III Aridius, a mentally disabled man from Philip II's earlier marriage. 2. Power struggles among the Diadochi. Following Alexander's death, a fierce and violent power struggle erupted among his top generals and officials, who sought control over different parts of the empire. Figures like Ptolemy, Seleucus, Antigonus, and Cassander carved out their own territories, often clashing with each other in an attempt to control the central authority of Alexander's empire. This period, known as the Wars of the Diadochi, saw the fragmentation of Alexander's empire into smaller, competing Hellenistic kingdoms. In this environment of political chaos, Alexander IV's position as heir to the throne was never solidified. The child king's role was reduced to a symbolic figurehead, and the Diadochi effectively controlled the empire's affairs. Alexander IV and his mother were kept under the watchful eyes of various regents, including Perdiccas and later Cassander, who sought to prevent the young prince from gaining any real power. 3. The imprisonment and murder of Alexander IV. As the political situation became more tense, Alexander IV's life was increasingly at risk. In 317 BCE, Cassander, one of the most powerful of the Diadochi, seized control of Macedonia and took charge of the affairs of the young heir. Fearing that Alexander IV might one day challenge his authority, Cassander ordered the murder of both Alexander IV and his mother, Roxana, to eliminate any claimants to the throne. Alexander IV was executed at the age of 13, marking the tragic end of the direct line of succession from Alexander the Great. His death was part of the broader violence that marked the downfall of his father's empire, which fractured into multiple Hellenistic kingdoms ruled by Alexander's former generals. 4. Conclusion. Alexander IV's failure to become emperor can be attributed to the tumultuous and fragmented political situation following Alexander the Great's death. As an infant, he was never in a position to wield real power, and the ruthless ambitions of his father's generals ensured that he remained a pawn in their struggle for control. Ultimately, his tragic death at a young age sealed the fate of the Argead dynasty, and Alexander the Great's empire was divided and lost to history. Despite his royal lineage, Alexander IV's legacy was overshadowed by the military and political dominance of the Diadochi, and he never had the chance to rule as emperor.